Okay, we're looking at PrepTest 65, December 2011, and this is logic game number 3. The organizer of a luncheon will select exactly 5 foods to be served from among exactly 8 foods. 2 desserts, F and G, 3 main courses, N, O, and P, 3 side dishes, T, V, and W. Only F, N, and T are hot foods. Okay, so just to get this started, right? First off, do we have any sequential aspects to this? We know that there are 3 groups here, D, M, and S. We know that within each of the groups there's exactly 1 hot food. We know that of 8 of these, 5 will occur. Okay, the other 3 will not occur. Point being, there is no sequential aspect to this game that we know of right now. Again, a sequential aspect would be something like, these dishes occur in an order 1 through 5, and we need to determine that order. Right now, we're not talking about any specific order. We're just saying these 5 dishes are served. Okay, so you need to constantly be thinking about sequence, group, sequence, so on and so forth. Right now, this game is immensely complicated. We've got groups here, we've got subgroups, we've got 2 groups that are actually occurring. We should know that we have an in and out group with the 5 and the 3. We're going to have to do whatever we can to navigate this game, and we understand that. Now, when you see something like this, the question that you should always ask yourself is, which group is the most important? Well, this one, the group that's not occurring. If we know what's not occurring, then we know what is occurring. So we're constantly thinking about this game in this manner. Let's go through the rules and see what we come up with. Okay? The following requirements will be satisfied. At least 1 dessert, 1 main course, and at least 1 side dish must be selected. So of the DMS, we have at least 1 of each. Meaning that it's difficult because we need to keep this in our mind. When we look at this, we've got to have at least 1 from this group, and this group. Okay? And then just as a side note also, which one do you think would be the most important group? Well, believe it or not, it's going to be this one because it has the least amount. Because we know if one of those does not occur, then the other one must. Okay? So it's the minimum that is really the most critical. Okay? So at least 1 hot food must be selected. So I have F, N, and T. I should help us out and circle this. I've circled it there to let us know. We've really got a 4th group, and it's the hot food group. But I've just elected to put a circle around it. Okay, but 1 of those must occur. And then a very critical rule: if either P or W is selected, then both must be selected. So if you think about that, if we have P, then we have P and W. And if we have W, then we have P and W. What is the contrapositive to that? If we have W or P, if we don't have W or we don't have P, then we don't have P. And then if we don't have P or we don't have W, then we don't have W. Okay? So, so what that really means at the end of the day, and hopefully you can see this without needing to go through this mental machination, is either both of them are in or both of them are out. Okay? And that is the critical feature to the game, understanding that rule. And so if there's anything that you take away from a game like this, and I'm trying to write a book on all this stuff and trying to come up with video lessons for everybody, this is a critical rule and understanding that what it means. If you have an in and an out group and you have the rule as stated, the result is that. And if you can identify that immediately, then you're way ahead of the game. Okay? And then the next rule, if G is selected, then O must be selected. Therefore, if O is not, then G is not. And if N is selected, V cannot be selected. And if V is selected, N cannot be. Okay. On the surface, pretty hellish, to be quite honest with you. What can I do with this game? Well, I need to just try to work a few things out to see if I can figure out anything that can happen in this game. All right, so what I do know, let's operate with what I do. I know this, okay? I know this can happen either this way or this way. Okay, and I've completed the task with this rule. Okay, and now, as I stated before, if we were going to just look a little bit further, I mean, what are we really left with here? We're left with some conditional statements, a couple of things that we know that have to occur. Okay, if you were to just proceed with this game just off the cuff, you're dead in the water. It's not going to happen for you. Or if it does happen for you, you're a better person than me, but it's not going to happen. What do I do? Okay, well, what is the most important group up there? Okay, F and G. F and G, there's only two of them, right? So let's just think about when we're talking about what cannot, what's when P and W are out. Okay, well, what could I do? I could have an F, a G, an F, a G, or simply F and G. Okay, so let's just think about what happens here. Well, let's just go with this. We know that that's going to have to happen, and if there's an N, there can't be a V. These just fall out automatically. And so now we're left looking at this. Well, you should understand this rule. Okay, does that mean that one is in and one has to be out? Absolutely not. Let's just look at this real quick. Just hopefully you know this. If I have N but not V, and then V, not N, right? Okay, think about this on in and out, all right? And there's four things that can happen. I could have V and N both in. I could have V in, N out, N in, V in, or both of them actually out, okay? Now, what happens here? If I look at this, I have an N in. If I have an N in, I have to have a V out. That is not possible, okay? If I look at this one, if I have a V in, which I do, and this, then I know that N has to be out. This would work, okay? If I have N in, then I need a V out. That's here. That works, okay? But let's look at this one. Do I have an N or a V out? No, I don't know anything about what happens if they're both out, because the rule starts with the sufficient side. Okay, so actually I could have V and N out. Now it doesn't really come into play here, but really I could have both of them in the out group, okay? But what I should know is that I've got to have, now the question is, can I have both of them in? Absolutely not. So I know that this has got to look like this. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then what's left over, we have T, TVW, N, O. Well, I also know that if I have a G, I have to have an O also. Okay? So this is the only thing, literally the only thing that can happen if I have P and W not occurring in. And if we go through this, we could look at it again. We have P and W in. Do we have an F, an N, or a T going? Yes, we do. That's okay. Do we have at least one from each of the group? We have an F and a G. We have an N and an O, and we also have a T. Okay, so that's okay. And if I look through, if I have a G, then I know I have to have an O. And if I have an N or a V in, I know the other one's not going to be in. This actually works. So this is the only thing when P and W does not occur in that can happen. Now, what can happen on this one? We really need to play the same game again, okay? And I wish that I had a better way to show you this. But once you know what this game is being played here, I don't think it's that critical. You can solve this game relatively quickly. Okay? If that's what we have occurring, let's just kind of see what we can do, if there's anything that we can do with this. Anywhere we have a G, we know that O would have to occur. Okay, so we have an O here, and we have an O also here. We have filled in this completely, so we know that V, N, and T are not occurring. And let's just kind of see if this is valid. We have a G and an O, that's right. We have V and N out, which I've shown that can be okay. That's not an issue. I just also want to make sure that we understand something. If G is in, then O has to be in. And if O is out, then G has to be out. Does that mean that it's going to be like this? Absolutely not. There's nothing that says in the rules here, okay? If we look at this, there's nothing that says if we're looking at G's and O's again, right? What can happen? We can have a G in and an O out. We could have an O in and a G out. We can have them both in and we can have them both out, okay? If I have a G in, then I know for a fact that I have to have an O in, so this will not work, okay? If I have an O in, though, I have no idea what will happen if I have an O in. This could actually happen as well. This is okay. And then we know, obviously, if we have a G in, we have an O in. And if we have an O out, we have to have a G out. But the critical thing is to understand that this can happen, okay? This is not the same as saying G and O must occur together, or G and O can't occur together, you know. And when I say can't occur together, I really mean that they are occurring together in the can't group, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's just, you should know that, and this game is really kind of harping on this with you quite a bit. Hope you guys can see that. Okay, so let's just kind of go back to this and just see if there's anything more. You know, I'd love to solve this all the way out, but I don't have a lot of time. So I'm just kind of looking, this one exhausted out, and I just kind of replicated the same strategy. Well, what do I see anything else that I can do here? If I have it, you know, this doesn't mean that O has to be out. That's totally not the case. What do I know? What would have to happen here? I have a P and a W. Can I have an F and G out? Well, no, I can't, right? So this one drops out. This was a little bit redundant, but you know, just kind of my mental process. When I'm doing distribution, I just do it, and then I'll figure it out later. But you know, this obviously couldn't have occurred because we need one of the group in there. So we're down to this right here. We have an F here. We have a P and a W. You know, this is basically a hot food at this point in time. We've got a hot food here. On this one, we know that we'd have to have an N or a T right here. Okay? Because we simply have to have a hot food in. There's no way around that. We don't have that. So we know that. And then so that means that one of them are definitely going to be out, and then we have a V out. Well, let's see. What do we have going on here? Literally we're down to, we started off with kind of the most complex thing, and we're down to, we've solved 3. We're down to this 4th one. Could we have is anything now constricting these? Well, we know that we could have an N and a V out. We can't have both an N and a V in, but other than that, there's really no other constraints to this game. So we're dealing with an N, a V, a T, and a W. Nope, sorry about that. And an O. Okay, we know that it's possible, totally possible, for the O to occur in. T doesn't have any confining rules. N and V don't have to be in. And we've got everybody from every group. So really the only rule to this one is both N and V can't go here. Okay? Now, I've taken a great deal of time explaining this. And, unfortunately, for those of you that might doubt whether or not you can do something like this, I don't have the, I could just break it out for you and show you what I just did on this game. I solved this game extremely fast, maybe in 6 minutes, 7 minutes. And really what the theory was, or what the understanding was, is this PW, 2 different worlds, here and here. And then just the same simple basic trick that this F and G thing. And then if I had a G, I knew I had an O. So that's really how this is built. That's really the only way I would know how to explain to you to do a game like this. We're looking for the out group, and we're looking for the smaller group, and we're looking for just one rule to give us something to go on, and we got it right there. Okay, so let's just go ahead now and take a look at the questions. Which one of the following is a list of foods that could be the food selected? Okay, list question, right? And seemingly a theme in this LSAT 65. If you look at the first 2 rules, they're extremely difficult to look at because you have to understand, what, compare D, M, and S, make sure one of them is occurring. We need to know, there's got to be a F, N, or T. these are not great rules to start with because they're kind of difficult to pick out. So we want to go to the easier rules first, and then we'll go back up the chain and see when we have a limited amount of rules, a limited amount of answer choices, how we can work with these. But so let's just skip now to the third rule. It says if P or W is selected, then both must be selected. And if you look at D, we have P selected, but we don't have W selected. So D falls out automatically. The fourth rule, if G selected, then O must be selected. Well, let's look at C. G is selected. O is not selected. Okay. The fifth rule, if N occurs, then V cannot occur. Well, in A, N occurs and V also occurs. So we're just down to B and E. And now with just two answer choices, right? Now it's much easier to go and look at these rules. So if we look at the first rule, okay, you know, if you look at B, we have an F, we have an O, and we have a T. So that's okay, that's covered. But you know, let's look at E. We have a G, that's the first set. We have an O, okay, and then we have a V. So the first rule, nothing broke that, okay, so that's okay. Let's look at the second one. We need to have an F, an N, or a T, and E. If we go to E, that's out, okay? So again, when I'm explaining this or walking through this, it takes a little bit more time, but you know, if you just develop these habits, you'll have a great success. It's just very methodical and you should be very methodical in your approach. Again, if you can avoid complicated rules and go to the simple ones to eliminate answer choices first, then you're much better off and you can move through it much faster. Okay, 13. Which one of the following is a pair of foods which the organizer of the luncheon must select at least one? Okay, so if we look at F and T, well, let's see. Right here, we wouldn't have to have an F or a T. We could have an F and a T not occurring. So that's out. We don't have to always have an F and T. Let's look at B, a G and or an O. Well, right here, if you look at it, we could have G and O out and then have an N and a V separated with T there. So we don't have to use G and O or either G and O every time. Okay. Let's look at C. We have N and T. Well, here we don't even have N and T being used. So since neither has to be used, we don't have to use one of them every time. Let's look at D. O and P. Well, we have to use a P here, O here, O here. We have to use an O there. We have to use at least one of O or P in every single situation. Therefore, D is the correct answer. Let's look at the last one, though, VW. Well, here we could use V and W in the out group. They wouldn't have to be used whatsoever. Given the fact that we have one example where neither have to be used, it is not the case that at least one must always be used, okay? All right, let's look at question 14. If O is the only main course selected, then which one of the following cannot be selected? Okay, so main course, if O is the only one, where do we not have a N and a P? Well, we know we have all P's here. All right, so it has to come down here. If we did O, not having N, so we did O, V. V would be selected, and we're dealing with N here and V here. Okay, so if O is the only main course selected, which one of the following cannot be selected? Can we have an F? Absolutely. Can we have G? Absolutely. Do we have T? Absolutely. We have to have V, E, W. That can't be selected. Therefore, that is the correct answer to the question. All right, 15. Let me get rid of this. 15, if F is not selected, which one of the following could be true? So where do we have F not being selected? It really only happens right here. If we look at it, we have F selected here, here, and here. So what could be true if F is not selected? P is the only main course selected. Well, we know we have to have a P and an O, so that can't be true. T is the only side dish selected. Well, we know we've got to have a W, so that cannot be the case. Exactly 2 hot foods are selected. Well, we know that exactly 1, because F is a hot food, and either N or T is going to have to occur, so that can't be. We know, again, we have to have exactly 1 hot food. D, exactly 3 main courses are selected. That could actually happen. We could have N, O, and P. that would, and then, obviously we'd have G and W that would complete everything out, but D is the correct answer. I mean, it is possible that we could have 3 main courses selected. And then let's look at E, though. Exactly 3 side dishes are selected. Well, no. We have a V that's not occurring. We'd need T, V, and W to actually occur, so that can't be the question. Okay, 16. If T and V are the only side dishes selected, then which one of the following is a pair of foods, each of which must be selected? Okay, so we need to find a situation where we have both T and V selected. Well, let's see. We don't have T here, so I'm down to my last question. So I'm free to do what I want to do with my templates. Okay. So now we're saying what happens in a situation where we have T and V both selected. All right. Well, the question is, can we do it here? Absolutely. We can have T and V selected here, and then we're sitting with N and O. And just to be, we have F, N, and T. This is our F. N is not there. We have T. So these are our hot foods. Let me actually do this like this. We have F and T, and then this is the guy. That's, let me say it like this. Okay. So that's what these are the only 2 things that can occur. And again, I would have definitely ran through that much faster, but I just want to put these things on the board so we can see. If T and V are selected, are the only side dishes selected? So, okay, let me go back and look at this a little bit closer. This is also a side dish that's selected, so this actually falls out. Here, T and V are the only side dishes selected, so now we're just at this. Okay. Which one of the following is a pair of foods, each of which must be selected? Well, if we look at A, F and G, that is the correct answer to the question. Let's keep going, though. B, F and N, well, we know that N doesn't have to occur. C, F and P, well, we know that P doesn't occur. D, N and O, or again, N is not occurring, and then back to E, the OP situation occurring there. Okay, so that we know that in fact the answer to the question is A. Now, a couple of things I did on this game that, to be candid, they were kind of by accident. I basically spend about 15 to 20 minutes on a particular game and go through it a couple of times and then come up here. I did an extra one here and then realized, oh, you know what, F and G, there's no way that this could work because we have to have a D here. That was at the very beginning of the game. Another thing I just did is I actually fleshed this one out before I realized, oh, wait, we're looking at all side dishes here. This is all side dishes, but we can only have 2. So some extra work does fall in, and it's okay because as you're working through, you can remind yourself of what's right and what's wrong. But just in closing on this particular game, there's really no other way to do a game like this effectively and make sure that it's right and work through it in an efficient manner other than the way that it just occurred. And you should also fully understand these concepts. And if you don't, feel free to email me and I'll either put together a more comprehensive video. I've got video lessons of this. I'm not sure which lesson it is. It's an early one where we really talk about this stuff, but you should know this like the back of your hand. If you don't, shoot me an email or look at the video lessons, but this is not an issue. This shouldn't be an issue. You should fully understand it. Trick to the game, understanding this rule, and understanding this and the small group. The smaller groups are the ones that are actually critical. Okay, that concludes Logic Game 3, Prep Test 65. Thanks.